how can we, as the greater maker community, how can we better support Indigenous folks trying to get in and learn STEM and be a part of this community?
I really want to encourage people kind of starting out, like, look around the room at different spaces you're in, whether it's a maker space, whether it's a robotics competition, wherever you are, look around the room. And if everyone looks like you, that might actually be a problem. And I think a good place to start is by looking actually at your social media and who you follow. If same thing, if everyone you're following looks like you, that's a problem. You should be following creators and makers who don't look like you. And there are so many Indigenous experts in everything from artificial intelligence to hydroponics to drones. And a lot of people don't even know that. There's a lot of talented artists, models, fashion designers, people who are doing so many amazing things. And a lot of the times we're not brought to the forefront or celebrated because people just aren't aware of what we're doing. That's changed a little bit as of recent because of some recent TV shows like Reservation Dogs and Prey. But I suggest for people to look around, see your surroundings, like who am I following, who am I physically around, and start following people and advocating for there to be a change if there needs to be one. And that can just be a simple conversation with organizers and saying like, hey, you know, like this isn't looking too diverse, this lineup's not looking too diverse, or whatever it is, and just bringing that type of thing up, because the organizers at spaces are more likely to listen to you than to listen to someone who is a minority. And that goes across all the fields, not just Indigenous peoples. That includes all minorities, because every single minority is very underrepresented within like maker communities. And it for a long time has made me not even consider myself a maker because I haven't seen myself represented in those spaces. And I felt very unwelcome.
Yeah. Yes, I just recently had a conversation like that with an event.
Hopefully there's many more.
Yes.
It can be a hard conversation to have, and sometimes people may not always be receptive, but I think that tells you a lot more about the person who's not receiving it rather than you. At least you're trying, at least you're doing things. It does make a difference, because even if it doesn't matter to you, it can matter a lot to future makers, and it can matter a lot to those around you who you may not even be aware of.
Yeah, and you know, your point is a good one of like looking around and seeing who you're following and who is in your spaces. I feel that a lot of people fall down, and like myself included, I could be doing a better job of this, but like a lot of people fall down on outreach. You know, it's easy to follow people who are already in your social circles and just reach out to them when you need something or when you have a call or an opportunity or something like that. And I think the thing that a lot of people, you know, white people especially, miss is that you actually do have to spend some effort to do outreach and to connect yourself with other communities.
Especially when they don't have similar backgrounds. Something I would encourage is to get involved with local communities, especially local Indigenous communities, and not take a role of leadership or anything like that, but just learn and ask questions and learn. And if you're able to donate. If you're able to contribute in some way, do that. There's a lot of very difficult things that have affected our communities, not only in the past, but in the present as well. And we need support, and we need people to be allies for us and for a lot of the problems that we're facing. And I encourage everyone to get involved with their local tribes. Something that you can do to learn is whose land you're on is land. I think it's land dash back.ca. I'm not quite sure, actually. I will see land.
Yeah, we can look it up too and add it to the links.
I'm like, I can't remember which one it is, but there's a website where you can see an entire map of all the Indigenous land around the entire world, and it's really cool.
Cool. So yes, we have a bunch of chat in the chat, which is awesome. Hello. It's great to see everybody. All of you. Hello, Jen. Hello, Bredan. Hello, Bob. Cool. Yes, so Bob is saying that he remembers learning that a computer was a job description which was often filled by women in like the 1930s to 1960s. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that
that's
and
even recent.
word processor was
Yeah,
the first
and
computer job.
yeah, and that's even recent. Like a lot
Yeah.
of traditional knowledge holders in our communities are women. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the role that we all can take in science and tech, and that we're all equally capable of creating cool things.
Yeah, so we do have a question for you. Okay, I'm not familiar with this acronym, but are there other Indigenous people in AISES?
AISCS is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, and they do a lot of amazing work. They're actually the organization that brought me to the White House this week, and I'm really thankful for that. They're one of my favorite charities, especially if you're in academia or you're looking for a supportive STEM environment. For me personally, I'm not in academia or anything like that. I just like to join and hang out with my friends. Sometimes I bring my robots and things like that, but there are robotics people, and not a lot. A lot of them are in high school and are on first robotics teams. There's several, specifically Ojibwe, so that's my tribe, robotics teams, and they're doing really cool things. You can see some demonstrations at some of the conferences. There are not a lot of natives in robotics, which is why I encourage people to advocate for robots in general and how cool they are, and to share why they love robots. But if you're interested in ACES, you should definitely join, especially if you're a student or a professional.
Cool. What was your role at the White House, at the meeting and everything there? What was that all about?
So this is my second time going. It was a lot different from the first experience. The first one was very difficult. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but they didn't make me sign anything the first time around. It was very difficult. It was very racist. We had people steal our ideas. We had inaccurate Native representation. It was one of the most difficult work events I've ever done in my life. That being said, the second time around was a lot better. I think that a lot of, what's the word, bureaucracy? I can never
bureaucracy.
Yeah, and like government and things, I think not as much progress is being made as needs to be, especially through the Indian Child Welfare Act, or ICWA, which was up in the Supreme Court last week, which is to basically, the Supreme Court was trying to rule if it's unconstitutional. It helps in cases of foster care and adoption. If a Native child is taken out of their home, that it is preference that they go to an Indigenous family first. Or if they have another family member to take them, for that to be preference. Is not always the case. But one family was angry that they could not adopt a child. And so they brought it to the Supreme Court with pro bono lawyers who represent big oil. That says a lot about the case. It's very, very scary. Lots of scary problems in our communities.
Yeah.
That being said, I was there for the Tribal Youth Forum with the White House. It was put on by the Center for Native American Youth and Unity. And we were there to talk about issues that we care about, in everything from mental health to language revitalization. And I was able to advocate for resources for youth, which was really awesome. And then we had the very first celebration of Native American Heritage Month at the White House.
Nice. Cool.
It was very interesting. It's a very kind of surreal experience. I am not by any means in politics. I think especially as someone who runs a nonprofit, you have to be very careful with how you legally, represent different opinions. For me, it was an honor to be invited again, but it definitely comes with a lot of implications of you have a lot of hard work to do.
Yeah. Yes, I understand that you can't cross the line of being a political nonprofit organization.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard because even in the Supreme Court, with our community members who were advocating on behalf of ICWA, they were asked to be removed out of, I can't remember exactly where it is because all the government buildings get mixed up to me, but they were told that their regalia was political and they were told to leave or
I saw that.
Yeah. And that type of thing happens a lot. I don't think people realize how much we experience harassment and racism, no matter what we look like as Indigenous peoples, no matter where we're from, we face a lot of hardship.
Yeah. Yep.
And I just encourage everyone to try to get to know Indigenous peoples if you can. We're all different. We're all up to no good sometimes. I'm always up to no good with my robots, but
I like it.
I think that's all of us.
Heck yeah. I think most makers are up to no good with their different creations. That's how the most fun stuff gets made.
Exactly. I think some of the smartest, coolest people I've met, and are always a little, naughty, creating cool things. It makes me excited. Makes me really happy.
Yeah. Are non-native allies allowed to join ISIS?
ASIS and probably ISIS. I don't know if there's good.
Oh, right. No, not ISIS. Not that ISIS. ISES is what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I think people can attend conferences if they'd like to. I tend to tell people, like, I've seen people do this. If you're non-native and you're taking travel scholarships meant for native students, I've seen this happen. Don't do that. That's weird.
No.
I've seen that happen a lot. I almost name drop. I won't. I'll be nice. But I've seen that happen. Don't do that. Don't take any last minute spots from students. If there's sometimes days where it's like a career fair, different things, you can come in and look. Don't use it as an opportunity to get jobs, that type of thing. Like, always take a back seat. Let the native students go first and things, just like I do when I'm in other people's spaces. But yeah, that's just a basic thing. Come observe. You can listen to opening sessions. Most of the stuff is streamed online as well. If you want to contribute, donate, that's always helpful as well. But yeah, in general, like, I wouldn't use it as a career boosting thing. Some people disagree with me, and some say all are welcome. Come, make the most of it. Do as you will and you feel is the most ethical to you. But yeah, it is a very welcoming space and it's a very exciting space. And I would encourage people at the very least to tune into live streams and to donate.
Cool. Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen people like resource taking, and I'm like, why? Leave it alone.
Yeah, that is shitty.
Yep, definitely stressful.
Do you have any advice or things to say about how we can, like, we as white people can approach the Thanksgiving holiday with respect to Native Americans? Because yeah, it seems like a way fucked up holiday that is both celebrating the thanks as genocide was happening.
Yeah, it's definitely celebrating genocide, and it's kind of difficult to be like, oh, let's have a great, like, rational approach to this. It's hard to say that when it's like, oh yeah, like, they destroyed our communities. We're still here though. But yeah, that is difficult. What I encourage people to do is to invest into their local Indigenous communities. I see a lot of people, they sometimes find natives online and they support them. That's awesome. But I always suggest to invest in the communities where you are presently at. And there are many tribes, hundreds and hundreds, and there are many that are federally recognized, and there's many that are not. Those tribes, they are valid, they deserve to be celebrated and supported. And what I encourage people to do is to learn about our communities, to ask questions when there's opening to do that. Don't always expect us to educate you though. Like, for me, that's my job, but some people don't want to, and that's okay. Know that we all have different opinions about things, different backgrounds. Some people may disagree with me, some people may agree. Totally valid. There's millions of us. But I really do encourage people to read up on our histories, to learn about whose land you're on, and to understand that it's not always a positive day for us. It can be very difficult to celebrate these days, and to it can be very difficult because we've seen so much loss in indescribable ways, from systematic taking of our children, to not even being allowed to speak our languages, celebrate our cultures, to even being forced onto reservations and being forced to eat certain foods. It's crazy to me because Hitler was actually inspired a lot of for the Holocaust by how the US treated Indigenous peoples. And a lot of the research that we have on things like calories, food systems, stuff like that, a lot of that and is based on, like, medical torture of Indigenous children in US and Canada at boarding schools. I want people to know this. It is not a pretty thing. Our cultures are very beautiful. We're very beautiful people, but we have been through a lot. And I think a lot of people force stereotypes on us that are not accurate. And that is very hard to deal with. And so I want to encourage people to be aware of these things and to let us express how we feel, however we feel, because some people may be like, I'm going to eat food with my family. Other people are going to be mad. Let people do their thing. Yeah, that's the most thing I recommend. And to, yeah, just research, read up, and to understand where we're coming from. One other thing on Twitter, if you're looking for good resources in natives, not to shade anyone, but I would not, a very large account, Lakota Man, I would not use as a resource. People don't even know if it's run by a real native person, and a lot of the stuff can be very harmful and stereotype us a lot. So I would not use that as a resource. Be very careful in listening to Indigenous peoples when looking at the sources that you're consuming.
Yeah.
And if things pander overly to non-natives, maybe it's not a native person saying it.
Yeah, I would think that it would just be best to start with organizations, because organizations are going to have many people. They're going to have more of a public appearance.
That's true. Keep in mind that a lot of them are very corporate and pander a lot to sponsors and things. So I would just talk to local people and get to know maybe natives in your local area and be respectful of our space as well.